You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, caretaker at the Reef, also the co-host of Western Conference Tuesdays on the Locked On NHL channel. I want to thank you for making the Locked On Sharks your first listen. Proudly part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. If you want to be an everydayer, all you have to do is just follow wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch on YouTube as well. And Macklin Celebrini is officially a San Jose Shark as he signs his ELC. We also have some other signings with Dellandrea and Grundström. And Ty Emberson goes to arbitration. So we'll discuss all those and more. But before we get to that, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as playoffs wind down. The sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. Macklin Celebrini is a San Jose Shark, officially signing his ELC on Saturday. And we all kind of knew this was coming, but this is a big step, right, for the Sharks, as they have now completed the teardown portion of their rebuild. And now you're in the build portion of the rebuild. And Macklin Celebrini is a foundational piece to that rebuild. And I know there's going to be people that are saying, like, he should have gone back to college, et cetera, et cetera. Like, no. Celebrini just won a Hobie Baker Trophy for being the best player in college sports as a 17-year-old, or college hockey as a 17-year-old. Like, there is nothing left for him to prove at college level. He's ready to play NHL games. And yes, he needs to get bigger, faster, stronger. And that is going to be part of what he works on the rest. He's even admitted, like, that's, the next 2 months while he's at home in Vancouver training. Getting bigger, faster, stronger, working in the gym. Celebrini is like, you're almost, I don't want to say wasting, but you're kind of wasting a year of development by sending him back to Boston University. And I'm glad that the Sharks, he talked about how what the Sharks had kind of done this offseason, adding some more pieces, getting a guy like Tyler Toffoli in the building, is going to help out guys like him and Will Smith. And that's going to be a big part of what the Sharks have to navigate, is how do you have two players, 18 and 19-year-old players in Will Smith and Macklin Celebrini on the roster, and, let them kind of go through the rigors of an NHL season. How do you kind of protect them? How do you kind of keep them, get them ready for an 82-game season, all that fun stuff. But for Celebrini, though, this was the right choice, was for him to become an NHL player. And there is the possibility that he could play with the Barracuda. Same with Will Smith. I just don't see it, to be honest. Like, I know William Eklund played with the Barracuda for an entire season. We've seen Bordeaux playing but no, like, Celebrini's a different dude, man. There's a reason why he was the number one pick in the draft class. There's a reason why he's viewed as the potential next Sidney Crosby or Sidney Crosby light. There's a reason why, like, he's been like this type of guy for a while. And I fully expect Celebrini and Will Smith as well. Again, it's going to be hard not to kind of bunch these two together, but like, Celebrini's going to play in the NHL, and I would be shocked, to be honest, if he even touches foot with the Barracuda, just because of one, what he means to the San Jose Sharks organization and the energy that's around it, and two, I think his skill level. Like, it's not like he's coming from Europe and he needs to get used to the a smaller ice, or kind of playing against a little bit more fit. Like, he's been playing in college hockey, which is on a smaller ice. And college hockey, I think, is um, definitely like if you were to mix college hockey, especially the defensive structure and the physicality with juniors, which the more kind of open game, like that's kind of how you get to the the NHL. But for him playing against guys, he's been playing against guys who are bigger than him his entire life, older than him than his entire life, and this isn't going to be any different. So I fully expect Celebrini to thrive, to be honest. And yeah, this was 100% the right decision for him to sign. So I'm super excited. I already ordered my Celebrini jersey. I know Sharks fans are super excited, and you should be, right? You don't win the NHL lottery very often, and when you this is the first time in franchise history, right, that they've won NHL lottery, and you luck out by having a guy like Macklin Celebrini, who I think is, again, maybe not a Bedard like, but I think he's more well-rounded than Bedard, and I think he's going to be able to stick in the NHL from day one, just because his floor already and way he can play defense, just the way he thinks the game, and just that kind of tenacity and that like that even you hearing like Todd Marchant talk about just the way he attacks things and like just goes and gets like, I'm just gonna get the puck. I don't care if you're bigger, faster, stronger than me. I'm just gonna go get it from you. And it's rare to have that kind of third liner mentality, but also the skill level that Celebrini has, if that makes sense. That's not to be a knock, right? Right. You see that like those kind of try hard type of players who, right, like it's just like that's what makes sets them difference. But put that into an incredibly skilled player like Celebrini, and I think you have a recipe to, one, be successful, and two, to do it for a very, very long time, because I don't think there's ever going to be a time where he just kind of takes it easy, right? Like that's just, he's just wired a bit differently. So yeah, it's going to be fun. There's going to be, well, later on this week we'll kind of talk about kind of winners and losers from free agency and from the draft and stuff, but the Sharks fans in general are a huge winner because of just the past week or so, plus you factor in the Will Smith signing. Like this, the vibes around the organization, I talked about it last week on after the prospect scrimmage, like just the vibes around the organization right now are just so much 180 degrees compared to where we were last year. And don't get me wrong, like this team is still going to be not very good this year, right? And we can like, let's calm down on the like, hey, this team could surprise people. Like it's still like, you still have an 18 and a 19-year-old kid navigating their first full season in the NHL. You're gonna have players like William Eklund, who's in his second season in the NHL. And yes, they've added some talent, but like this was the worst team in the NHL last year by a wide margin for a reason. And that isn't going to change overnight. So let's pump the brakes on this team being, a surprise or anything like that. Like, this team is going to be more fun night in and night out to watch, which is a huge plus for someone who has to watch 82 games of Sharks hockey this year. But two, like you're building, right? This is a building. It's a slow process. Mike Grier isn't going to rush this, isn't going to, shortcuts. And you can look to our friends down south in the Kings, where it felt like they kind of tried to shortcut it a little bit by trading for veteran guys, and look where they are now. They're kind of stuck as this first round team that gets knocked out of the playoffs every year. And I think that's not Mike Grier's goal. Mike Grier's goal is to win a cup. And I think the Sharks are going to continue to do this the right way and not try to rush the process. But though for the Sharks, like this is a huge weekend, huge past week with landing Macklin Celebrini, getting him in the building, him being like, and there he could have gone back to college and been like, you know what, I just want to go back to college and go hang out with my friends and go score a bajillion goals and have fun in college, and cool, man. But kid he's ready to go. He's ready to take on, being a franchise savior by the bull of the horns, and ready to do this thing. And the maturity that he shows as an 18-year-old kid it's is very impressive. And again, he's been around pro athletes his entire life, and I think you never are quite ready for, I think, to play a full NHL season. But if there's anybody who's gonna be somewhat ready, I think it's Celebrini, just because of his background, the people he has in his corner, like just the way he's been raised and kind of prepared for this. I think the kid's gonna do just fine. So yeah, all hail our new overlords, Macklin Celebrini and Will Smith. What a day! It's God, just wait till the Sharks are really good again. Oh my goodness, it's gonna be fun. So we'll get caught up on some other Sharks news. Of course, Ty Dellandrea and Carl Grundström sign, and Ty Emberson goes to arbitration. So what does that mean? We'll get caught up on some of this stuff here in just 1 minute. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop, but with the playoffs now all but done, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to fanduel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, so we did have some news that kind of popped up on July 4th, but of course, with the Sharks playing in the prospect scrimmage and stuff, wasn't really able to kind of get caught up on that. So let's get caught up on some of the signings here. So the Sharks did sign two players that they traded for, coincidentally, I guess. One would be Carl Grundström. Yay, Mike Grier, for letting me keep a bit for at least a little while. Grundström signed a 2-year deal at $1.8 million AAV, or 2 years, $3.6 million. And you kind of wondered, with the way kind of the Sharks attacked the bottom six, where Grundström would potentially fit in. But with our very short-lived friendship with Igor Ofisanev, who's now going back to the KHL, they kind of opened up a roster spot, and there's going to be plenty of competition between kind of for these bottom six spots. I mean, if you look at, you have Sturm, you have Goodrow, Luke Cunnin, Carl Grundström, Ty Dellandrea, Colin Graff, Giovanni Smith, Justin Bailey, like Thomas Bortler. There's going to be a ton of competition to make the team, let alone get playing time. But for Grundström, like, this feels very much a fair deal for him. His qualifying offer was at 1.3, so a little bit more than his qualifying offer. But I think signing him for 2 years, and a guy who's 26 and won't turn 27 until December this year, gives them a little bit of a kind of stability over the next 2 seasons, and kind of a nice little pay bump for him, for a guy who's worked in had some moments in the NHL, maybe hasn't gotten kind of the solid playing time as I think he would hope with the Kings, but I think he's going to be able to have a chance to kind of earn that here with the Sharks. Guy who's really bounced around between the Kings and playing in, also playing down in the AHL. So curious to see. I think, though, with this contract, he is not going to be a guy, I think, who's kind of in danger of getting waived to be a potential AHL guy. And if he does get waived, I think with this contract, you're less likely to see him get picked up, because when teams want to pick up guys they're looking for kind of cheaper short-term contracts, and having 2 years at 1.6 million on the books, a little bit tougher to kind of justify doing that. And just as a reminder, you can, if they do waive him, you can bury up to $1.1 million down in the AHL, and then the rest would sit on your book. So if they do waive him successfully, he goes down to the AHL. The Sharks would have a cap hit of $200,000 dollars on there. So just something to keep in mind with that. So especially as I know the cap went up, but teams are still very cap conscious, and having a guy who you would have to waive again to try to get him to AHL if you did claim him, and two, you would have to kind of eat some money just to have him on your cap. Doesn't seem like it. So, but yeah, I think Grundström is going to be one of those guys really fighting for a position as a bottom six guy. Also, Klim Kostin. Forgot about Klim Kostin. I always forget about Klim Kostin for some reason. We'll kind of as the summer goes on here, we'll dig into kind of this bottom six and how we think this is going to kind of work out. So and then another bottom six guy who the Sharks acquired, Ty Dellandrea. So he also signed a new contract. Dellandrea signed for 1 year at $1.3 million, or if doing my math, that's $2.6 million for the next 2 seasons. Dellandrea, a little bit younger, right? 23, turns 24 here in a couple of weeks, but also going to be one of those fighting for a bottom six type of players here. And again, kind of like Grundström, where he would have a bit of a cap hit if the team did keep him. Dellandrea is kind of the same scenario here. I am interested to see where, especially when you have guys like Giovanni Smith, who I know missed a bunch of time last year because of an injury. Luke Cunnin, who got his nice little contract as well. Kind of where does Dellandrea fit? And I assume he's probably going to be kind of a fourth line guy, potentially a third line guy, but there's a lot of competition here for that bottom six, which is good, right? More depth, that way you're not having to kind of pull up guys from the AHL. And I really think there's going to be an effort to have a much more competitive Barracuda team, especially after some of the signings that we have seen from the Barracuda over. But there's I think for guys like Justin Bailey and Giovanni Smith, like those guys are going to have to really, really earn their spot, especially with much shorter, cheaper contracts. I think those guys are really, really going to have to kind of earn their spot and their location in with them. So, and the fact that the Sharks traded for Dellandrea, also as a former first round pick, like, there's a little bit more. I hate to say it, but like, right, first round picks, those guys are going to get a little more rope. They're going to get a couple more chances and stuff. But yeah. So another thing with Dellandrea, though, this does actually with both. So Dellandrea, he will be an RFA after his contract. Still be an RFA after his contract. So the Sharks will still have his rights. Carl Grundström, he'll be a UFA when this current contract runs out. So where he'll be free to re-sign with the Sharks, or he could potentially go to free agency with the Sharks. So just wanted to kind of wrap up those signings. I think the only guys who are unsigned right now for San Jose. So we know Igor Afasaneyev, who is an RFA, is going to be going to Russia. You have Brandon Coe, who nobody like. Right, he's probably going to get a vet min type of deal. You also have Ty Emberson, who we'll talk about here in a minute. Then you have Henry Thrun and Thomas Bordeleau as the remaining unsigned guys. Bordeleau's qualifying offer is going to be $874,125. So expect him to get somewhere around there. And then for Henry Thrun, his qualifying offer is also going to be the exact same thing, $874,125. So you don't have to worry about offer sheeting with those guys since they haven't played enough NHL games. They will be Sharks next year unless the Sharks decide to announce their rights. But yeah, those are kind of the only guys who are unsigned right now at the moment for San Jose. So we'll get more into Ty Emberson arbitration, kind of what this means, go through kind of explain the arbitration process for those who maybe don't know, and why you shouldn't worry about arbitration here in a minute. So yeah, it'll be okay. So we'll talk about Ty Emberson and what this means here in just 1 minute. All right. Ty Emberson goes to arbitration. What does that mean? So arbitration, if you're unaware, basically what happens is you have with these RFAs, you have a qualifying offer. This is kind of what they're expected to make. Teams, of course, can offer more, offer less, and that player has a right to say, "Cool, I'll sign," or "No, I don't think that's right." So with this here, I assume what's happening is Ty Emberson feels he should get paid X amount, and I assume the Sharks are like, "Hey, buddy, you missed a bajillion games last year. We think you should get paid this amount, right?" And it could literally be the difference of like a couple $100,000, whatever, like, or it could be contract length where maybe Emberson's like, "Hey, I'd rather sign a 2-year deal," and the Sharks are like, "Hey, we'd rather sign you to a 1-year deal." Right, there's a bunch of different things with the arbitration rights that could go into it. So how does arbitration actually work? So basically what happens is, and here both team, the player and the team have kind of, right, they haven't found a middle ground, which is part of any contract, right? Is trying to find, other than your ELC, every contract is, there's a give and a take and a process for this, right? And we're probably, when I think the next big, we've kind of two, I think, big contract decisions kind of coming up for San Jose. And one would be Fabian Zetterlund, who will be an RFA after this season. And then, of course, you have the William Eklund, who's kind of the first piece of the Sharks, kind of rebuild here, who will be eligible for an extension next summer. And those, I think, are going to be, there's going to be some give and take on how these contracts kind of work out. So, but so for arbitration, right? They both are basically given they say their price, or the agent will say their price. Mike Grier and his team will say, "This is what we want to pay you." And they decide to go, let's go to arbitration. So what happens is basically both parties will be given kind of a chance to explain or kind of state their case. And it's very kind of stats heavy, right? Where it's like, hey, so for Ty Emberson, hey, look at, his plus minus when he was on the ice, look at how the team played when he was on the ice, et cetera, et cetera. And then Mike Grier and his team will be like, yeah, that's great and all, but you missed X amount of games because of injury. Like, can we count on you to be healthy? Right. And then arbitration will kind of 48 hours later, they'll go through and they'll basically say like, okay, here's the contract. And that is kind of the ruling. So what usually happens though is it rarely actually gets to arbitration. Most of the time there's actually a settlement. So Mike Grier in his camp and Ty Emberson in his representation, they will keep kind of hammering away at this to try to find some sort of middle ground of where this kind of deal would be. So I wouldn't worry about this, really, to be honest. And it's a negotiating tactic. Like, teams go to arbitration, teams and players go to arbitration all the time. There's 14 of them this year. Like, I would not be worried about this. It's a bit of a negotiating tactic, right? And Mike Grier, we know Mike Grier has been pretty ruthless when it comes to some of his moves. You look at like William Eklund, who should have been playing in the NHL more last year. They sent him back down so that way not last year, 2 years ago, right? Could have been playing in the NHL, but they sent him back down before his 8 games, so his ELC will slide for another season, like things like that, right? Where maybe it's the tough decision, but it's the right decision for kind of the sake of the team. And if they're haggling over a couple $100,000 or whatever it is, like, yeah, it might stink right now, but it's part of the business, and I'm not trying to be pro Mike Grier or pro Ty Emberson. I'm just trying to kind of explain like what happens here. Usually there'll be I would be shocked, to be honest, if this does go to full like arbitration. There will probably be a settlement, and what's the saying, deadlines make progress or whatever. Like, someone, once it gets close to the deadline, they will probably sit down and try to kind of come up with their best. Each will come up with their best offers, and they will get a deal done. So Ty Emerson will be a Shark next year, which I'm really glad. I'm really excited to see him play a full season in San Jose, hopefully, because I thought, to be honest, he was one of, if not the best Sharks defenseman last year when he was available. Yes, health, and I know the skate cut was just an unfortunate thing. It happens, but like, the hope for him is if he can stay healthy, like he could be a really nice piece for the Sharks going forward, because we saw, especially defensively, I thought he played really, really well. And I think an Emberson Wallman combo would be really, really fun together because of their strengths and weaknesses. I think that those two guys together would be a really nice match and a really nice pairing. So, but yeah, if it does go to arbitration though, like, and actually gets to arbitration. So 2 years ago, they had, I think only one contract got to actual arbitration 2 years ago, like actual case. This is 2022. Like, and they just, most of the time, this is just kind of gives them a little bit of a more time to kind of talk this through and figure out the actual deal. So, but yeah, one other thing with arbitration is if they actually do get there, they're not allowed to bring up previous like contract negotiations. They have to basically kind of stick to the facts, stick to the numbers with that. So just kind of an interesting thing. They can't be like, we offered him 1 year at 1.6 million and he offered at 1.8 million. They can't do that. They had to basically just kind of present the case of like why his salary should be here, and that would be like, he missed time because of maybe he missed injuries, and we feel that he should be this, especially because he's only played for like one season. Like stuff like that, where it has to be very, very like kind of stats based and kind of factual based, and not bring up like, here's how much we offered him, here's how much he offered us, like type of thing. So, but yeah, don't worry about Emberson. Don't worry. It's just part of the thing. Like the Sharks have had plenty of other people go to arbitration before, so I'm not worried about it. You shouldn't be worried about it too. So, yeah, it'll be fine. But yeah, Macklin Celebrini is a Shark, guys. So, yeah, just as a quick, as a quick kind of real quick roster rundown right now, as we starting to kind of get everybody penciled in here. So yeah, for the forwards right now, the Sharks have, including Logan Couture, who is, of course, don't know with him, but the Sharks currently have 17 Ross players who will be under contract. So you have Couture, Toffoli, and this is by cap hit. Couture, Toffoli, Granlund, Wenberg, Goodrow, Luke Cunnin, Klim Kostin, Nico Sturm, Carl Grundström, Fabian Zetterlund, Ty Dellandrea, Macklin Celebrini, Will Smith, Colin Graff, William Eklund, Giovanni Smith, and Justin Bailey. And then you have Thomas Bordeleau, still needs to get signed. Bordeleau, Eklund, Graff, Smith, and Celebrini are all waivers exempt, so they can go down and play on the Barracuda without having to go through waivers there. So we'll dig into more on kind of where everyone ranks and stuff with the roster here. As we have plenty of time. We're doing 5 episodes a week through the end of July before we kind of cut down to our 3. So we have plenty of content to fill over here for the next couple of weeks. As for the defense, so you have Vlasic, Wallman, Mario Ferraro, Jan Ruda. Then you have Matt Benning, Ty Emerson, and Henry Thrun. Both last two still need to be signed. And then for goaltenders, Vitek Vanacek and Mackenzie Blackwood. So yeah, gonna be very interesting and competitive when it comes to training camp and kind of where guys slot in here. So especially because Sharks have added a lot more oomph and depth on the bottom 6 to hopefully kind of help protect the top 6 a little bit more here. So that's going to be it for me today. We'll be back tomorrow to discuss something or other. We'll figure out what we're going to discuss. Plenty of good stuff. So make sure you guys are following along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. Follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. Follow me on Twitter at MyFryhole. Till tomorrow. Bye, friends.